As to count 57, participation in criminal street gang activity, how do you plead?
I plead guilty.
As to count 58, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 59, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 60, violation of the Georgia Controlled Substances Act, how do you plead?
Guilty.
As to count 61, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, how do you plead?
Guilty.
And as to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, how do you plead?
Nolo.
As to count 56, participation in criminal street gang activity under the leadership charge, how do you plead?
Nolo.
I think you didn't ask about count 62.
As to count, thank you, Your Honor. As to count 62, possession of a machine gun, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Are you pleading guilty to the offenses you have indicated because you are in fact guilty of these charges?
Yes.
All right. Are your guilty pleas and your nolo pleas freely and voluntarily given with the full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes.
Do you understand that you may have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have only 4 years from today's date for a felony charge and 12 months from today's date you don't have a misdemeanor charge, but to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness and constitutionality of this guilty plea?
Yes.
Your Honor, also, do you...
You have 30 days from today to file a direct appeal from this guilty plea and until the end of this term of court to file a motion seeking to withdraw the guilty plea, which does not mean it would be granted, but that's the time period, okay?
What's a direct appeal?
Well, you can talk to your attorneys more about it, but it would be up to one of the, like the Court of Appeals, I think is where this one would go. Those are just the time periods.
And Your Honor, the state, in addition to the sentence we are asking that the court to impose,
Okay.
we would also be asking the court to require or to forfeit, have defendant forfeit all of the property that has been seized and that is currently being held that was found or recovered or taken from his home after it was searched on May 9th.
Do you have any kind of list of what that property is? I mean, I'm not familiar with what was seized.
And Your Honor, we're
We
not
do,
agreeing.
and
Oh, I know, I mean, I assume y'all aren't agreeing to anything.
We're not
or
agreeing
you would
to that.
present it as a negotiated plea.
we're not. But we do have a list of the
All right.
property items.
Do you have it where available right now?
Yes, actually, would the court permit us to send it electronically?
Sure,
Because
that's fine. And then if that is not imposed as a condition, is it just get litigated as like any forfeiture matter?
Yeah,
Yeah, it would be litigated later
s-
on, yes.
It's a civil separate filing
Okay.
in this court. It's not related to a criminal.
All right.
It's related case, but it's unrelated.
Understood.
And we are sending that to Your Honor
Thank you.
at this time. And as it relates to the conditions of a conviction under 1615-4, Your Honor, we would ask, or as part of the sentence, defendant would be required to adhere to the requirements, the sentencing requirements of the gang statute, which at least in part require that he not associate with any gang members whatsoever. And I can read the rest of that into the record if the court requires, or I can continue with the factual basis.
All right, and let me ask you, because I know that at least while y'all were negotiating, one of the things that I guess was being negotiated was some exception for, I think, somebody that is contractually obligated on his record label. Is that something that the state would still be in agreement to?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right. Your Honor, as part of the requirements of 1615-4,
Yes.
defendant would, one moment, Your Honor. Under 1615-4, in addition to any other penalty provided by the code section, all sentences imposed under the code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly
Slow down
have...
just a tad, because there's a court reporter taking it down. And when we start reading, we read really fast. So go ahead.
This code section shall require as a special condition of the sentence that the person sentenced shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of a criminal street gang, shall not participate in any criminal gang activity, and in cases involving a victim, shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any such victim or any member of any such victim's family or household. So that is, and we've listed in our indictment the victims of the crimes, the overt acts that have been committed, and under the basic conspiracy law, those are the victims that we are naming. Your Honor, as this case has been tried and would continue to be tried until the state completed its case in chief, the evidence has shown that the defendant, throughout the time between 2013 to 2022, conspired with both indicted and unindicted co-conspirators to participate in the enterprise known as Young Slime Life, or YSL, through a pattern of racketeering activity. Throughout that time, multiple conspirators, both indicted and unindicted, and including the defendant, have committed overt acts intended to further the enterprise itself. With regard to the defendant, as far back, the evidence has shown, as 2013, the defendant, along with other YSL founding members, Walter Murphy, for one, committed an aggravated assault and armed robbery against a Derek Dotson. The court has heard evidence of that presented through Adrian Bean, who was a co-conspirator in that particular act. The armed robbery of an Archillian Bennett back in 2013. As alleged in the indictment, defendant and unindicted and indicted co-conspirators committed acts to further YSL that included drug sales, aggravated assault, and murder. They used and furthered, rather, this conspiracy by using social media posts and music to assert the violent nature of and the dominance of Young Slime Life, which is also known as YSL. The defendant is charged with being a leader of the gang YSL, and evidence has been presented by accomplices and co-founders of YSL, Trontavia Stevens and Walter Murphy, and evidence would have been presented, in the words of the defendant himself, that the defendant, as shown by some of his own social media postings, was the founder, one of the founders of YSL, along with Mr. Stevens and Mr. Murphy. YSL formed, according to the evidence that has come out in this trial, in 2012, 2013, under the former version of the name of the gang called Rock Crew, or Raised on Cleveland. The court has heard evidence of the 2014 and 2015 incidents that have involved conflicts between YSL members and IF gang members that included someone shooting the window of Mr. Williams' car and armed individuals rushing outside during shootings at Club Crucial to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at a place called the Dugout where armed individuals rushed to ensure Mr. Williams' safety, shootings at Mr. Kelvin Watts committed by members of YSL, communication with members of YSL after those incidents, and ultimately the murder of Donovan Thomas at the hands of members of YSL. The evidence has shown and will show that on January 10th of 2015, members of YSL drove a car rented by the defendant, a gray Infiniti, and drove past Mr. Thomas as he stood outside of a barber shop congregating with friends, and unloaded an array of bullets on Mr. Thomas, hitting him, his Chevrolet Tahoe, and 2 other persons in the process. Mr. Thomas died from those bullets. Phone records show that communication was held between Mr. Williams, Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, Mr. Demise McMullen, corroborating accomplice testimony that has been presented in this courtroom regarding what happened, who committed the murder, and what happened to the guns and the vehicles that were used in the murder. After the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., the members of YSL responsible for the murder and members of YSL who were not responsible for the murder congregated at Mr. Williams' condominium called the Sky House, and they all made plans and later either drove or flew down to Miami. Prior factual acknowledgments by members of YSL include that Mr. Williams gave each of the persons who accompanied him to Miami money to lay low as they left the city following the murder of Mr. Thomas. The evidence has shown the ensuing conflict that occurred after Mr. Thomas was killed. It has shown shootings at Mr. Rashawn Bennett's home, shootings at Mr. Darren Mills' mother's home, and I said Mr. Rashawn Bennett's mother's home. Shootings unrelated to the conflict with members of IF gang, of a Lil Wayne tour bus. That shooting followed the confronting by Atlanta Police Department of members of YSL that drove to the compound where Lil Wayne was making an appearance and who drove there with the intent to disrupt and cause harm and to shoot up Lil Wayne's tour bus. Lil Wayne was another artist with whom Mr. Williams was having conflict, according to the testimony that had been presented. Mr. Williams had come out at that time with a mixtape that carried the name of an album that Mr. Carter was set to release and was not able to because his label would not allow that to happen. That caused a contractual or the threat of a lawsuit. It caused Mr. Williams angst. He posted about it. He said derogatory things about the persons who were threatening him with the lawsuit. And as a result, he had to rename his mixtape to something different than what he initially intended. The person who ultimately was convicted of shooting that tour bus up, Jimmy Winfrey, is a person that I believe that recordings have come in regarding jail phone calls, rather, from Mr. Winfrey and members of YSL regarding communication about getting a lawyer. Following the shootings that occurred in 2015, music, social media postings, and other overt acts were committed by Mr. Williams and other members of YSL, taunting members of groups that they considered opposition to YSL, posting of threats of violence by members of YSL against those people. Specifically, the music, Your Honor, contained lyrics such as the following: I rep my life for real, for slimes, you know I kill. I shoot at your mammy, need to stand down. I up my stamina, take it to trial, get an appeal, take it to trial, pay for that casket, that's just if we whack 'em. YSL slimy and shady, watch me whack that bitch, pop 'em like a cyst, Glock with the assist. It also consisted of a song wherein Mr. Williams sang or rapped the lyrics, hey, this is that slime shit, that YSL shit, killing 12 shit, fuck a jail shit. I'm in the VIP, I got the pistol on my hip, fuck the police. You praying that you live, I'm praying that I hit, this that slime shit. 100 rounds in a Tahoe, I'm prepared to take them down. Got banana clips for all these ends acting monkey. This is that slime shit, this is that mob shit. Fuck the judge, YSL, this that mob life. Defendant Williams released a video on YouTube of a song wherein he states, I shot at his mommy, now he no longer mentions me. Act like you want war and they gonna smoke you like a blunt. Another song, I escaped every one of the licks because I was supposed to be rich. I don't care nothing about a cop. I'm just telling you how it is. I done did the robbing, I done did the jacking, now I'm full rapping. Gave the lawyer close to $2 million, he handles all the killing. We don't speak about shit on wax, it's all my business. We know to kill the biggest cats of all kittens.